Chad Ikes, and this is Courage Barbell. Today, I want to talk a little bit about how I started training and how lots of guys started training who are in my almost 50 years of age and up, and how different that is compared to how people are learning how to lift and train today. And I think that we're kind of missing some of the benefits of the old style of training, but that doesn't mean we can't take advantage of the new style and bring back some of the traditions of the old style. So, for those of you that don't know, I started lifting in high school for sports. So, I'm almost 50 now. So, I've got some 38 years of experience lifting, training, competing at the highest level, competing or lifting for sports. Working with other multiple types of athletes. But how I learned back in the day before we had the internet or any of that cool stuff, I learned from these things right here. Yeah, these are books. For those of you kids that do, this is a book. This is a hardback book right here. I didn't really have a gym to go to because we didn't really have a lot of money. And back then, gyms had an initial upfront fee, which was pretty hefty, and then you had an expensive monthly fee. It's not like, hey, $10 gets you in and you can train all you want anymore, or like it is now. I mean, it was definitely more of a financial commitment back in the day, and my family just didn't have that. So as I started collecting equipment, trying to get equipment from my friends' parents that had plates and stuff they didn't use, and trying to gather dumbbells and everything, I was lifting in the basement, and I had no one to lift with. I had no one to learn from. What I had was magazines and books, and most of the magazines that I had access to were all bodybuilding type magazines. So if I knew my mom was going to the grocery store, I would go to the grocery store and spend most of that time flipping through magazines. When I had the money, I would buy a magazine, take it home, and of course read it multiple times, post the pictures on my walls and stuff. When I had money, I would go to the bookstores, to the sports sections, and get all the bodybuilding or lifting books that I could find. I happened to go through my bookshelf. I had a big collection, but over the years I've loaned them out, and of course when you loan stuff out, you hardly ever get it always back. But I grabbed this one. This was one of my first one. Frank and Christine Zane, Super Body in 12 Weeks. Which didn't really actually work out for me. I never got a super body in 12 weeks. Well, I never had a super body, let alone in 12 weeks. Frank Zane was really popular back in the day, though. He was right up there with Arnold. He was just a lighter weight class. Guy was in great shape. I've actually ran across a couple pictures of him not too long ago where he still looks amazing. But you would buy one of these books, and most of them had a little nutrition section, a little stretching section, a little warm-up section. And then you would eventually get to some templates, some training templates, programs, and then you would flip through a section normally, where I'm trying to find a good picture here, where they would go over the exercises. And this, of course, varied in books. Some books were, you'd have the section split up in body parts. Some of them would be and here's the exercises to go through. I mean, it all kind of varied a little bit, but basically, there's something like this. You had two or three pictures. So you had a picture of the beginning of the lift, the picture of the end of the lift. By the way, these are funny to go through because of all the old pictures and clothes and the old benches and stuff that we used back in the day. But you would have a couple pictures, and then you would have a description of the exercise. And then it would say, what this exercise is trying to hit. The muscles you're trying to activate and you're trying to, make grow through this exercise. So as I'm in the gym, in my gym in the basement, I'm looking at the pictures, I'm reading through it, I'm like, okay, let's try this. But the difference for me was because I never had a video, because I never actually saw the exercise performed, I leaned a lot on, okay, what muscle groups am I supposed to be working here? Where am I supposed to feel this? That's what I based a lot of my movement on. If I did the movement like I think the pictures were, and I wasn't feeling it in that area, I knew I wasn't performing it right. And this also helped me develop a good mind muscle connection where like I'm thinking about the muscles I'm supposed to be working while I'm performing the exercise. I'm focusing on whatever, if it was like a bodybuilding bench, say out here, and you're really working on your chest, like I'm really focusing on making sure my chest is actually activating during this moving and doing good. So I think in terms of learning that way, it was actually really good for me. I mean, I had to search for information. It wasn't like it was just there. You know, I had to actually go after the information and put in work just to get information. Then when I had the information wasn't fully complete. Like I actually had to use my mind to concentrate and figure out what I was doing and how I was doing it. And I think in a lot of ways, this is maybe a better way to learn because it makes you work for it. It makes you earn it. And it helps you build that mind-muscle connection. It helps you know that, hey, this is really what these exercises are for, and this is why I'm performing them. Oh, and then they're telling me to put it in this order and train this way. Okay, well, that must be to work these muscles. And it kind of helps you put it all together and actually have an understanding of it instead of just following something. I also think because I first started lifting for sports. So the idea was to get stronger with sports. And I'm not a very good genetic athlete. Like I had to work very hard to get good at anything I did. But it seemed like through lifting weights, my athleticism improved quite a bit. And yes, part of that is a gain of strength, but I think a lot more of it was learning proprioception, learning about my muscles, how to feel my muscles, learning proper movement patterns, learning a lot of the neurological stuff that goes way beyond just the muscles. You know, I learned what it felt like to put my body in a certain position, the proprioception. And the more I lifted, the better my athleticism got. And then when I picked up a different sport, that seemed like, wow, I had never picked up a sport that easy before. I still had to work at most stuff, but that's life. So we move on. Let's move forward to how people seem to learn today. And I'm judging this from my own personal experience in seeing people. And I'll go into a story or two about that. It seems like today people get on social media, they get on YouTube, and they seem to like look at exercises and stuff and go, oh, that's cool, I want to do that exercise. And they don't really seem to put much more thought into it. Even when they look at the movement, they kind of look at the movement and they go, oh, I can do that. I got it. And then they go to the gym and do that. And I've actually had instances where I'll see a friend of mine post something on Instagram, and then I go to the gym and all of a sudden I see a lot of people doing this exercise. And out of my own curiosity, I'll go up and ask them, like, hey, I haven't seen you do that before. Where'd you get that exercise from? Oh, I saw so-and-so do it on the internet and it looked cool, so I'm trying it. Well, I mean, what does it work? Like, why are you doing that exercise? Oh, it looked cool. Like they did it after they bench press, so I'm doing it. I benched tonight, so I'm doing it now. Okay. Like, I mean, how is that why are you fitting it in your program right there? Well, that's what I saw. Okay, is this like helping a weak point? Is it working a certain muscle group? I don't know. I just know it's for my bench press because they were bench pressing and they did this. Okay. And by that point, I pretty much know that all they're doing is regurgitating and mimicking what they saw on social media. There is no thought into what it is, how the movement is actually performed, what muscles are supposed to be used. Basically, in terms of Chad speak, they're lifting with no intent whatsoever. Like they're just mimicking a movement. There's no intent to the movement because they don't know the proper movement. There's no trying to make a mind-muscle connection to a certain muscle group. There's no proper movement patterns necessarily, because if there is, it's by accident. They don't really know. They don't know anything about the exercise that they're doing. And I see this a lot. I've seen this happen a lot. And I have, when I with new clients and stuff, one of my biggest frustrations is just bad movement patterns, because people just see exercises and they never really understand the exercises. They never understand the movement pattern and how the body's supposed to move. And then they're amazed when I can sit down with them and go, yep, you're not doing this, this muscle group's not tight, you got to have this tight, you got to squeeze this. And they're like, how do you see all that? And I go, I don't know, it's pretty simple to me. But then it goes back to how I learn and how I continue to learn and how I approach new exercises. At this point, I'm very good at picking up how the body's supposed to move. Well, not as good as some, but I'm pretty decent at it. Picking how the body is supposed to move and what patterns. So I can look at an exercise most of the time and understand how it's supposed to be done. On the flip side, if it's someone I know that's doing a new exercise, I'm like, hey man, I'll call them up and go, what tell me more about this. Or if I have the chance to go up, the guys, there's so many smart guys up at Kabuki Strength that I love going up there and just listening, and I'll ask all kinds of questions when they have time, and like I'm curious. I'll let them go over stuff that I already know just to see if I can pick up a little bit more. And of course, there's always a few little differences, so it's interesting to understand the differences and why people do it and their theories compared to my theories. And if there's a middle theory, it's just all knowledge. It's all knowledge about lifting. Lifting is not a meathead thing. It's actually a scientific thing. You think about it, you know what you're doing. When you're in the gym, you should be lifting with intent all the time. All the time. Your warm-up should be done with intent. So this was just an interesting idea that I've been rolling around in my head for actually more than a few weeks, because I've been having trying to figure out some microphone issues to get better quality sound. So I shot this video a couple times, didn't like the sound, so it is a work in progress basically, just like everything. So, but I wanted to get this video out because I want people to start thinking more in terms of the connection between the mind and the body. I want them to start thinking more in terms of intent, not just going through an exercise and doing it, but actually focusing on the exercise and how you're performing it. I want people to start understanding why they're performing certain exercises, because how do you know how to fit it in your program if you don't understand what the exercise is there for and what it's supposed to be doing? So even though we have all this great technology today, and that's awesome that we have this technology, let's not forget how we learned in the old days. Let's not forget how important that is, and let's incorporate the two to come up with something even better. And for all the guys that are posting exercises, if you're like me and you're trying to help people and you're trying to coach people, like, we need to remember to make sure we're explaining in depth what the exercise is for, how to actually perform the exercise, what muscle groups you're looking for, what you should feel when you're performing the exercise, and things like that, so that people can also understand. And never be afraid to ask. There's a lot of really strong guys on the internet right now and really smart guys. If you ask them a question, odds are they're probably going to help you. So even if you go, man, that exercise looks cool, I wish I knew more about it, shoot them a message. See if you get a response. Like, hey, why are you doing that? What is that actually supposed to be working? Why are you focusing on that? And just start understanding more. Like, although our sport, lifting and strength sports are about physical strength, they're also about mental strength. The two are interconnected and tied together. You can't really separate them, at least not if you want to be successful. All right, guys, just a little something for you to think about as you're doing your training, as you're performing your exercises. It's funny, but even back when I did physical therapy is when I first learned about doing a lot of the rotator cuff exercises. And I still remember that to this day. And rotator cuff exercises are a great example in this instance because they're so light. They're so light and so minimal movements that it's easy to just go do an external rotation, but that doesn't get you much out of it. Like, even though it is light and even though it is a smaller range of motion movement and a very focused movement, it needs to be done with intent. You need to focus on those muscles. You need to understand what your rotator cuff muscles are and understand and see how they're working as you're going through this exercise. You're going to get so much more out of it if you do that. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Please like this channel, subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, share this channel. Did I say that already? Comment on this channel. I've been getting a few more comments. I've been getting a few more followers. It's growing way slower than I want, but as long as it's growing, I'm going to keep working to put out more intent, keep trying to increase the quality of this stuff, and I could use your guys' support. All right, I'm out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Chad Ikes, Courage Barbell, lift with intent.